Most people don't get stuck because they're failing. They get stuck because they don't recognise when something has ended. That's why this phase feels uncomfortable. The old identity doesn't work, and the new one hasn't arrived yet. Nothing is wrong, but nothing fits the same way it used to. That's not failure, that's completion. And if you don't recognise it, you'll spend years trying to fix what was only meant to be finished. There's a moment that comes without drama. No argument, no crisis, no single decision you can point to and say, that's when everything changed. You're still capable, still functioning, still doing what needs done. From the outside, your life looks the same. The responsibilities are still there. People still expect the same version of you. But internally, something has stopped asking. You don't feel pulled in the same way. The pressure that used to drive you doesn't land as hard. The things that once demanded your attention no longer hold the same authority. And because we're taught that change should feel intense, this phase gets misunderstood. People think they're losing momentum, losing direction, losing themselves. They're not. They're finishing something. This is one of the most confusing seasons a person can move through, because there's no clear problem to solve. Nothing is obviously broken, nothing has fallen apart, and yet you know something has shifted. You feel space where there used to be pressure, and instead of relief, that space can feel unsettling. Because pressure gives you instructions. Pressure tells you who you need to be. Pressure tells you what matters. Space doesn't. Space asks you to decide. And when you've spent years responding to demand, that can feel strangely uncomfortable. This is why people mislabel this phase as stagnation, or laziness, or a lack of discipline. But what's actually happening is quieter than that. An old identity has completed its role. Most people don't choose who they become. They adapt. They become what the situation requires, what the family needs, what the job demands, what the moment calls for. You didn't become who you were by accident. You adapted. You learned how to carry weight, how to hold things together, how to function under pressure. That identity wasn't false. It was intelligent. It learned how to show up, how to push through, how to keep things moving. That identity did its job. But here's what nobody explains. Eventually the identity that helped you survive starts costing you more than it gives. Not because it was wrong, because it wasn't meant to be permanent. And when they complete their task, it doesn't disappear overnight. It loosens. This is where people sabotage their own evolution. When pressure lifts, the mind doesn't immediately trust the space. Instead of listening to the signal, they chase familiarity. So people reach back to old habits, back to old attachments, back to old versions of themselves. Not because they want the past, but because the past is known. Tired people don't reach forward, they reach for what's familiar. And if you don't understand this phase, you'll turn a moment of completion into a cycle of repetition. You'll recreate urgency just to feel orientated again. But urgency isn't alignment, it's conditioning. There's an important distinction to make here. Drift is not failure. Drift is what happens when an old structure dissolves before the new one has fully formed. You don't need more force. You don't need the harsher rules. You don't need to punish yourself back into alignment. And without understanding that, people turn against themselves. They try to force motivation, punish hesitation, shame the pause. But this pause isn't collapse, it's integration. There's always a gap a space where the old identity has dissolved, but the new one hasn't fully arrived. This gap feels unstructured, unlabeled, quiet. And most people don't trust it. They rush to fill it with certainty, identity, or noise. But this gap exists for a reason. Your priorities are rearranging, your standards are rising, your tolerance for chaos is dropping. It allows your system to reset before the next direction forms. Sometimes it's not a full reset. Sometimes alignment is one small decision, one simple action, one moment where you remind your body, I'm still listening, I'm still choosing the man I'm becoming. That return, no matter how small, rebuilds trust. And trust is what discipline is built on. That's how discipline becomes identity, not through punishment, through consistency. This phase often feels lonely, and that catches people off guard, not because you're alone, but because you no longer resonate with the life built from your old identity. You still care, you're still present, but you don't participate in the same way. And that shift can feel like loss before it feels like clarity. Distance can form not because you're becoming cold, but because you're becoming clear. You're no longer available for the roles that no longer fit. And that clarity can feel like loss before it feels like freedom. At some point, something shifts internally. You stop explaining your choices. You stop justifying your pace. You stop narrating your inner process. You stop defending who you used to be, not because you're ashamed of the past, but because you've made peace with it. That past doesn't need defending, not because it didn't matter, but because it's already been honoured. It doesn't need to be erased. It needs to be thanked and put down. That's not rejection. That's not arrogance. That's completion. That's alignment. There's a quiet truth here that's difficult to hold. You can love something deeply and still know it doesn't belong in your future. Love doesn't guarantee compatibility. Care doesn't guarantee alignment. And holding on to something out of loyalty of the past can quietly prevent you from becoming who you're meant to be next, and sabotage the future you're meant to build. Letting go doesn't invalidate what was real, it completes it. Here's what surprises most people. Purpose doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it pulls calmly, consistently. You feel drawn rather than driven, interested rather than pressured, and because it's subtle, people often miss it. You might mistake calm for emptiness, but this pull is how alignment announces itself. When clarity doesn't arrive fast enough, people try to force it. They make premature decisions, commit before clarity, lock themselves into structures they haven't fully aligned with, and then wonder why everything feels heavy again. Clarity isn't delayed, it's protected. It arrives when you stop dragging the past into the future. Unfinished identities into new chapters. Let's correct another misconception. Here's what doesn't leave you. You don't lose your discipline, you don't lose your drive, you don't lose your depth. You lose the excess, the overcompensation, the unnecessary pressure, the identity armor you no longer need. What remains is stronger because it's chosen, not imposed. Completion can feel like regression if you don't understand it, because the external markers disappear. Less urgency, less noise, less visible momentum. But internally, everything is reorganizing. The structure is being rebuilt. You're not going backwards. This is consolidation, and consolidation is what makes the next phase stable. This phase isn't empty, it's fertile. Things are rearranging beneath the surface. Old priorities listening, new values taking shape. You don't need to rush it, you need to stay present. Direction doesn't return as a plan, it returns as congruence. Your actions start matching your values, you move differently, your decisions feel cleaner, you decide differently, you respond without friction as a sense of rightness. Things get done because they make sense, not because you're forcing yourself through them. Actions that once required effort now feel natural. You move without negotiating with yourself. That's alignment. The future version of you is built in this exact phase, not in moments of intensity, but in quiet consistency. Not through pressure, not through performance, not through effort, but through honesty, through trusting the pause long enough for truth to surface, through choosing not to recreate the past just because it's familiar, and returning again and again to what you know is true, and choosing alignment over urgency, clarity over pressure. If you're in this season right now, hear this clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. You're not failing. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're finishing something. You're completing a chapter with maturity instead of repeating it out of fear. You've reached the end of something that did its job, and now you're being asked to complete it properly. So honor what shaped you, what carried you. Respect the role it played and let it rest. Completion is not loss, it's integration. And alignment doesn't require force, it requires honesty. And you already have that. Slàinte Mhath, guys.